Good evening, everyone. And before we start, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the land we are meeting on, and would like to pay my respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging. So I will share my screen with you. And as Anila said before, please stay on mute. I know you all will have questions. Please type the questions into the chat box, and we have a system in place that Anila can get the questions to me while I'm talking with the screen on, and I will try my best to answer the questions while we go along. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, you all should see now like a lovely green Victorian curriculum, how to build a unit of work. Anila, just give me an indication if you can see it. Yeah, wonderful, great. So what you can expect today is we will look at the curriculum and how that is connected to the unit of work you have to submit to the department. So we all have to build a unit of work and then submit it for our accreditation for the language schools. We look at the curriculum, we look at the resources you have available to you, and we look at the templates, the model templates, but also the template you can use and you have to use to submit your unit of work. And we will also look at how to build a unit of work from scratch. We haven't tried that ever before, so I hope it will work and you stay with me and be patient when we struggle with the technology. But I will try to show you how to start building a unit of work for the teachers in the group who haven't done that before. Okay, let's make a start. The Victorian Curriculum for Languages is like our guiding map. Yeah, so the department has set up a curriculum we have to follow. Every one of us, doesn't matter if you have native speaker classes or non-native speaker classes, the curriculum is here to guide us what we have to teach in our classes. So hopefully lots of you have already looked at the Victorian Curriculum for Languages, and I tried to open the link for you. Okay, we can't do that here. Okay, you should still see my screen, hopefully. So here, this is the Victorian Curriculum for Languages, and you see lots of different languages on the left-hand side. And if you are lucky, your language is already here, like Arabic, Chinese, Classical Greek, French, and so on. You just click on that link and the curriculum will open up for you. If you're not in this list, you can find a general curriculum for you, depending on if you're a Roman alphabet language or a non-Roman alphabet language. Then you click on these links here. So let's open one of them. When you click on the language or on the general curriculum, what opens up is a general introduction to the curriculum. What is the aim of a curriculum? I will not go through the details here because you can read that in your own time. So please make sure you familiarize yourself with the curriculum and read through it in a quiet moment, because you learn a lot about the intentions of the curriculum, what we should do. Then you see here the curriculum itself. When you click on this link here, then it opens up a scope and sequence. I try to switch back to our slides here. So the scope and sequence is like the heart of the curriculum. Most of our schools, we start with foundation and then go up to secondary level. So we want to build a solid foundation in our teaching. And the scope and sequence is the way to do it. So we start very simple with introducing the alphabet, for example, simple words and simple sentences. For example, about talking about yourself, talking about your family, talking about colors or numbers. Really, really simple language structures. In later years, we build upon these roots we built and this foundation. That doesn't mean that you never talk about colors or family or yourself or your likes and dislikes again, but the expectation is much, much higher. So let's have a look of the scope and sequence. So this one is the Hindi one. And you can see there are two different ones. So most schools start with foundation. So you choose the first one here that goes from foundation up to year 10. If you're a school that starts in secondary, you would choose the second one that starts with the year 7. Yeah, but most of us, we start with the foundation classes. So when you look here, you have here foundation to level 2, levels 3 and 4, levels 5 and 6. And if I would click on next, it would just swap over and go to 7, 8, 9, 10. We don't do that right now because let's look at the primary years first. So scope and sequence means you have first a description of the curriculum. So I could show you a little bit more here. And it's important to read it through because that's essentially what you should teach in foundation, grade 1 and grade 2. That's what we are aiming for. And the same, of course, applies to level 3, level 5, level 6, and so on. So when you look here, students' familiarity with the spoken form of Hindi supports the introduction to the written form of the language. So you start introducing a written language. And if you look at level 3 and 4, it's essentially the same, but on a higher level. The expectation is much higher. So you look at students recognize and apply elements of Hindi grammar, such as the use of tenses, possessive adjectives, and so on and so forth. Let's look a little bit down here, and I make it in a different format. So you can change the format, and we look just to have an idea on the foundation to level 2 curriculum. We have 2 strands. That means 2 very important areas. One is communicating and one is understanding. So that symbolizes the 2 parts of language and language use. We use language to communicate with each other. For example, we socialize, or we use language to inform or getting informed. We use language to create text, stories, ideas. And of course, we use it to translating and reflecting. So that's one of the strands. That means one area we use language for. The other one is understanding. So besides socializing, informing, every language has a system behind it, a certain grammar, a certain structure. And that's very unique to each language. So we have the second strand is about understanding what is the essence of a language, the grammar, the structure. And we also can compare languages, and languages have different variations. So for example, in my case for German, we have different variations of language depending what German-speaking country you're coming from. So someone from Germany has a different way to talk and use the language than someone from Swiss or from Austria, for example. And then we look at the role of language and culture. I gave face-to-face workshops the last 2 weeks. And one example is, for example, in German, we have a poetry competition for our students where they have to recite a poem. And in the rules, it says that students are not to use big gestures because it's not part of how we use language or how our culture works. Yeah. And then an Italian participant said, oh, that would never work with us because we use our hands while we are talking. So the gestures, the big gestures are part of the language. And we look at that role of language and culture in the strand of understanding. And of course, we can compare that. For example, how do we use the language in English? How do we use the language in Hindi or in Arabic or in German? So that's the scope and sequence. And then at the bottom, we will find the achievement standards. The achievement standards, it is what represents our goal. So at the end of level 2, for example, so when the students finished foundation, grade 1 and grade 2, what do we want them to know? What do we want them to be able to do? And that's where we refer back to the achievement standard. That's our goal. So for example, here it says, students interact with the teacher and peers to exchange greetings and talk about themselves and their families, for example. And then there are examples in Hindi. Yeah. Or they express thanks, likes and dislikes, feelings and wishes, for example. And then there's another example in Hindi. So you can see these are the goals we are working towards, and they are really important when we build our unit of work. So let's go back to the general slide. Just checking if any questions came up already.
I haven't recorded any questions yet. All questions I receive or see, I respond to directly to the person. So
yeah, okay, wonderful. So I just keep talking.
Just one quick thing. There was one question how to make the screen bigger. If you hover with your mouse to the right, it says view. You can change how your screen appears and you can see the presentation slightly larger if you change the setting there. Mm-hmm. So just in case anyone needs help there. But yeah, thank you, Eva. Please continue.
Okay, let's go to a unit of work. So the unit of work, we take the building blocks of the curriculum, so the strands, the achievement standards, what we want to achieve with our students, and build a unit of work out of it. Yeah, so we have the building blocks, and then we build the house of our language, so to speak. We start with the foundation, and then we build it up. And I show you how that can look like. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. This is an example unit you can find in the Google Classrooms Anila set up for everyone. And there are 2 example units in there, an Arabic one and a German one. And then there is an empty template in the resources as well. I will show you later how it looks like in the Google Classroom. And this is the template you have to use for your unit of work as well. A lot of people in the face-to-face workshops came with draft unit of works, but used a different template. Please be aware you have to use this template. Yeah, even if you have a wonderful template made up for your school, it doesn't matter. For the unit of work you hand into the department, you have to use this template. And on the top, very easy, you fill in just what language you teach, what year level, what term you teach this unit of work, how long it is. So in this case, it's 3 weeks and 2.5 hours, 3 times, and there are 9 lessons in this unit. The topic is me and my family. Really important is choose a topic. A lot of schools write in something like getting to know the alphabet. That's not really a unit title. That is what you want to achieve. Yeah. And you teach it through a topic. So for example, me and my family. Then you have an essential question. Yeah. Why do you teach this unit in the first place? And the reason is, how can you introduce yourself and your family to a friend? That's the essential question in this unit. Then you have a unit overview. In this unit overview, you explain why you chose this topic and what you want to achieve. So this unit will introduce students to the Arabic alphabet through the theme, me and my family. Students will have the opportunity to become familiar with how the sounds of the Arabic language are represented in letters and words, and so on. So you lay down what is your unit of work about and how will you achieve that. Unit goals is what you want to achieve. What should they know at the end of your lessons? Yeah, and that is connected with the achievement standards I showed you just before. Yeah, so you take it directly out of the curriculum. Underneath is a place for the strands and the content descriptions. Remember the 2 strands I showed you, communicating and understanding. You choose roughly 3 to 4 of the different subheadings, substrands, which are related to your unit. Yeah, so not every substrand will fit. For example, you wouldn't use translating probably with a foundation class, so you wouldn't put it in here. Yeah, but socializing, for example, is a really important part in foundation years. So they learn to talk with each other, introduce themselves, interact with their peers in the class. So you would put in this substrand of initiate interactions with peers and the teacher by asking and responding to questions and exchanging information about self and family, friends, and school. And you can see this substrand is closely related to your unit title and your overview. Yeah, so there is a connection. Make sure that you always have this connection between the strands and what you're teaching and your unit overview. Yeah. The same on this side with understanding. So here the goal is recognize the letters and sounds of the Arabic alphabet and identify how letters are modified so they can be joined to form words. Yeah, and you will find it in the overview as well. Okay, the next part is key language. Of course, you can't write in every single word you will teach in that unit. That's not possible. Yeah, but the key language you will use, for example, greetings, family names like dad, mom, brother, sister. Yeah, how to express feelings towards your family. So just write in the key language you will teach. And then we go to the lesson plans, to the single sessions. So make sure when we go back up, here it's 9 lessons in this unit. Yeah. So make sure that when you go to your unit outline, to your lesson plans, that you number them, and then in the end, sorry for scrolling really quickly here because we have 9 lessons, that you have all the 9 lessons here. Yeah. That you don't stop by number 3, for example, if you have 9 lessons. Yeah. If you write down 5 lessons, you have to have 5 outlines, 5 lesson plans as well, 5 sessions recorded in here. Let's go back up to the first one. Here we go. On the left-hand side, you can see learning intentions. That's a really important part. So you write down, and ideally you would put that up on your whiteboard in the class at the start of your lesson, so you can show your students what you're gonna do with them today. So learning intention is we are learning to greet and to introduce ourselves in Arabic. So that's what we are learning today. That's our goal. We're also learning about the letter Aleph, and then we have success criteria. So when we achieve that, we reach the lesson goal. So we will be able to greet a friend and say, my name is, in the Arabic language. We will be able to recognize the letter Aleph and read it with one short sound. So these are the learning intentions and success criteria. Then we have learning activities. That's a really, really core part of your unit of work. And that's also the reason why we even bother doing a unit of work. Imagine that's like on your Google Maps. Yeah, you're in the car, you know the goal, you know the address, and then you need your lesson plan, your Google Maps to guide you to this goal. Yeah, and on the way it tells you, oh, turn left or turn right here, go around. The goal will be on the left side. So you have an idea where you're going, yeah, and the stops in between. So the lesson plans here are really important. So you want to make sure that you have your structure in place for each day. And it will support your students as well when you have a structure in place, because they know exactly what you expect from them, what they what you want them to do. So that's a really important part. In here, you can see there's a lesson starter, and then there's the introduction and the model activity. That means the teacher is explicitly showing the students what they need to learn, what they need to do, and models the language. For example, the teacher is greeting the students and shows them how to do that in the target language. So for example, in my case, in German, it would be that I greet the students with Guten Morgen, mein Name ist Eva. So that would mean, hello, good morning, my name is Eva. And you would do it in your language, for example, if that is your lesson starter. Yeah, and then you would go around to students, and the students would copy you, model from you, and say it in their own words. Then you can make a game, or you go on to the next activity. In this case, the next main activity is that the teacher will explain that the word, unfortunately, I can't read or speak Arabic, but the ones you can, you will know what it means. Start with the sound and show them the word on the board or on a flashcard. And now we come to a really important point too, resources. So when you look here, you see resources. And here you see flashcards, a softball, a YouTube video, find the letter worksheet, etc. So why do we write all the resources in here? Because that's a lot of work. So the learning activities, key assessment tasks, key language, resources, everything is really a lot of work. And you might question that and think about why should we do that? So one is that you have your guide, you know exactly what you teach on that day. But imagine you become sick, or you are the principal of the school and your teacher calls in sick in the morning. And if you don't have a unit of work, if you don't have your lesson plans, you don't know what will happen in this class on that day. But if you have a unit of work, if you have your lesson plans set out for you, you know exactly what to do. You can call a CRT teacher, a replacement teacher, and say, look, this is the lesson for today. These are the resources. These are the key assessment tasks. Please teach this class. So it's really, really important to have that in place, to have a continuing learning for your students as well. If a teacher, for example, becomes sick. But it's also that at the end of the term, you know exactly what you've done, what you taught, and you can see the progress as well. If you don't know what you will teach on the day when you go into class, how can you make sure that your students progress and you don't miss any important information or important grammar structure, for example, because you haven't covered that on the day? So it's really important to have that in place. So let's go back to the structure. So here, in this case, the teacher put in a second main activity with some worksheets, and then it's a wrapping up, a reflection. Yeah, and reflection is often used for key assessment as well. So in this case, what should we say when meeting someone? How does the letter Aleph look like? Can you give me some words that begin with the sound? Yeah, so it's a wrap up, it's a reflection, it's a revision what the students learned on that day, but it gives you really, really valid information. Did they understand your instruction? Are there still gaps? Do you need to revise something the next lesson? So it's a really important assessment as well. And you can see, and you can read that, of course, yourself when you go through the model templates. Every lesson is structured in a similar way, with a lesson starter, model activity, a main activity, and then feedback wrapping up at the end. Yeah. So let us scroll back, and then I will go back to the questions which are coming in.
And if you want to, Eva, I can also read these questions to you. Maybe that makes it a bit easier for you to think of an answer rather than having to read the ones I've shared with you.
Yeah, it's fine.
Right, no
at the moment, I'm still coping.
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, let's go to the bottom, because there is a really important part as well here. So at the end, you see achievement standards. So think back on the curriculum. I tried to click back. I hope that works. So here we have our achievement standards. And you need them for your unit of work as well. So you put in this lovely little table, you put in the achievement standards you cover in your unit, and then you put in which activities you do to achieve this goal. So students interact with the teacher and peers to exchange information about themselves, their family, and so on. So you do greetings and introduction role play, you ask questions, you model for them how to say their own name, and so on. Yeah. So these are the activities to achieve this standard at the end of level 2. Yeah. The same, they use repetitive language when participating in shared activities. The Arabic alphabet song, you don't do that only once, you do that multiple times, and so on. So you match your achievement standards with the activities you do in your lessons. In this case, for this table, you only pick the achievement standards you cover in your unit of work. You will not be able, and it's not the goal, that you cover every single achievement standard in every unit of work, because over the year, you will have several units of work. On average, I would say most of the time you have at least 5 or 6 units of work across the year. And for this whole year, you should try to cover every achievement standard. Yeah, and I'll show you later in a different example how you can make sure that you don't miss an achievement standard. Okay, let's go to the questions. We go back to the start of our unit of work, to the strands. So sorry for the scrolling. I hope nobody gets seasick. So here we are. And you can see this little gray thing here, VCARC 103. That's called a hyperlink. And if I click on this little thing, it should bring me to exactly this place. Yeah, that's part of the curriculum. Here's the content description, and here's just an explanation to it. Yeah, so it's really important to copy and paste the content description as it is and put in the hyperlink. Yeah, so as you can see here, you just copy and paste it with the hyperlink, and you copy and paste and put it in. Yeah, I'll show you later how you can do that. Maybe you can show you here. So you can see the hyperlink here. And what you do is you highlight the whole thing, and then you copy and paste. You copy it, and then later you can paste it in. Okay? I try to show you in our live from scratch how to do it later. So the second question is,
I think that second question I shared with you, Eva, is about how to teach, for example, something like learning numbers as part of the unit of work, or the alphabet as part of the unit of work. I think that's a really important question.
Yeah. So if you have these little bits and pieces that are not, I would say, not worthy of a unit by itself, like learning the numbers, what you can do is you can do it as a warm-up activity at the start. So for example, when we go here, you have your lesson starter, you sit in the circle, and you do a quick number game, for example, yeah, as a warm-up, where you teach the numbers but it's at the same time, it's your warming up activity. So that's not a problem at all. Or, for example, you use the numbers to, or you use the topic of family to teach numbers. So how many people live in your house? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. Yeah. How many people live in your village? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. Yeah. So you use the numbers in aligning with your topic, and with most topics you can use numbers at some stage, and can connect it with it. So another question is, so is it a better idea to plan the whole unit of lessons pre the sessions, or fill it in after each lesson and write what you actually did? So it's a two-step process. So first, you need to plan ahead. You need to plan your unit of work, because you have an intention, you have a goal. So you break this goal down in the sessions. So for example, if you have 5 weeks and you want to teach your students a specific concept in these 5 weeks, you break it down in the weeks. So you break the content, the activities and everything into the single sessions, and you outline that and you put it into a unit of work before you start teaching it. You think about how do you want to run this whole topic and what you want to teach. Then after each session, ideally, you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to sit down and think about what went well and what didn't went well. So for example, you have this great idea of this wonderful activity, you show a video, you have worksheets, and then after the session, you realize that didn't work out at all, because they didn't grasp the concept. The students didn't understand what you wanted them to do. They were not able to follow the video, or they found the workshop so boring that they did something else. Yeah. Then you would note that down, make your recommendations to change this part of the unit, and you will look through session 2 and think, okay, I will not use the same worksheet again, and maybe the YouTube video shot was too high with the level. I find other material. So yes, you will change your unit of work and you will adapt it, but first you have to have your unit of work, and then it's a work in progress. Yeah, because you will not continue with an activity that doesn't work. You will adapt it on the way, but first you have to write your unit of work for the 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever your length is, and then afterwards you adapt it and make your changes. So another question is, can we have 2 topics, say numbers and alphabets, together in the same unit of work? Yes, you can. Yeah, I wouldn't call it numbers and alphabet. I would choose a topic. Yeah, topic would be you and me, or my family, or Australian animals, and then you teach numbers and alphabet through that topic. So of course, you always teach several concepts. Okay, another question is, it's more like a statement. This is a unit of work, not a lesson plan. Therefore, I think this example of unit of work is getting into too detailed. I think here is the unit of work. We should present the key content of the lessons, not necessarily mention what learning activities, because every teacher will plan their own teaching and learning activities. Okay, the department wants to see how you teach. Yeah, so unit of work is the overview and your lesson plans. Yeah, that's the unit of work. That's how the department wants us to do it. And quite frankly, most schools I'm working with in the government sector, so the normal mainstream schools, how they do it as well. So you have your unit overview with your strands or achievement goals, and then you have your lesson plan set out. And yes, it is detailed, and it's not it's hard work. I give totally right, but for one, it's very useful if you have done the work, because then for the next few weeks for this term, the teaching will get much easier. And in 2 years' time, when you repeat that topic, for example, you take your lesson plan to your unit of work, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So it's not wasted time at all. And if you want to go through the accreditation, that's how we have to do it. Yeah, that's not my idea or my choice or whatever. That's how the department wants us to do it, because they want to see that the teachers in community language schools understand the curriculum, understand what we have to teach, what we should teach, and they also want to see that we understand language teaching and that we are up to a high standard in our teaching abilities as well. And that's how we can show it, that we show we have a structure, we have appropriate activities for the age group, for example. Yeah, and that's the reason why we have to do it in this certain way. So it's really about that it's age appropriate, that we can show our teaching abilities, and we have quite teaching abilities in our community language schools. And that's a way to show it off. You know, that's a really important piece of information for the department to get our accreditation through and our funding. Another question is, with foundation, should we do more speaking or more writing? Well, that's an interesting question. It depends on your students. Most of the foundation students will just start to learn how to form letters or how to write in the mainstream schools from Monday to Friday. So I would go with the level your students are at. So at the start of the year, you do more speaking, more games, and familiarize them with the alphabet slowly through writing activities. And over the year, they become more and more familiar with writing activities, and then you do more and more of that. But obviously at the start, you start where they are at. And that's more likely that they don't know how to write a letter, don't know write a word, or don't know how to read. So you start very simple, and then you make it more complex as the year progresses. Okay, I think I answered the questions I got so far. So if you have any more questions, please write them into the chat box. Just looking through if we missed any. Okay, good. That's something I want to show you too, is the resources already in the Google Classrooms. So all of you should be participant in the Google Classrooms. This one is the group 6 where I'm in. And Anila set lots of Google Classrooms for the different language groups. And you should see in the stream all these resources set out for you. So you have a wonderful video that shows how to create a unit of work. Please, please, please watch this video. It's really, really helpful. Everything I said to you today, it's in this video as well. You have 2 different unit planners, a German one and an Arabic one. And you have an empty unit planner as well as Google Docs and as a Microsoft Word document. You have to use these planners. Yeah, you have to use these templates. And I'll show you in a second how they look like. Then there is the checklist, and that's a really important part. So please use this checklist when you are working on your drafts. Go through all the different titles. Everything is listed here, what you have to have in your unit of work, really in detail. And then you can tick it as you go along when you put them in. Yeah. So Anila did a really, really great job to put all the information in this checklist to make it easier for everyone to follow along and see, okay, I put the language in, I have the year level right, the term is right, the duration, I checked that. What is my essential question? Is the title related and year level appropriate? So really important information, and please go through the checklist as you draft your unit of work. And all the trainers are using this checklist as well. So when we get your units of work to give you feedback, we have the list next to us and we go through it step by step and see if you ticked all the boxes, because these are the things the department will look for. And you have to imagine for the accreditation, they get hundreds of units of work to look through and assess. And if everyone is doing something differently, they go crazy. That will not work. So they need this template to make sure that they can see very quickly if you fulfill the criteria for this part of the accreditation or not. So that's why we have this checklist for you, so you can check, am I doing the right thing, or do I need to change something? Yeah, and all the trainers are more than happy to support you with that, give you feedback, give you recommendations or suggestions, what you can do to be compliant. So Anila is back. One question is, how often does the government do the accreditation? Every 3 years. And now we are all on the same schedule. So 2021 is this year accreditation, and the next one will be in 3 years. How many units do we need to do to get the funding? You need 1 unit for 1 year level. Yeah, of course, ideally, every teacher in your school should do their unit of work for every class they teach. But for the accreditation, you need 1 unit of work for 1 year level. Okay, just going through the questions. Okay, I think I've answered the questions so far. Let's go back. We talked about the checklist, and really, really important, you are all working hard on your drafts. Yeah, please don't forget to celebrate your successes, the success with your students, but also your success in putting together this unit of work. They are work, so it's really important with your teachers, or when you do it by your own, that you celebrate when you finished your unit of work. Yeah. Okay. I'll give you a few minutes to put in more questions, and then we will try for the first time.
I also think I'm fully back now because
oh, wonderful. That's great. Welcome
Sorry
back, Anila.
I thought everyone was kicked out of Zoom, so I'm relieved to see you just continued on your own.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eva. Sorry about the complication, but I should be back, and I have a voice again as well because I was muted before. All right. Maybe I'll also quickly just chime in. So you can share the Google Classroom invitation link with all your staff. It's just the same link. It's open to everyone. If you want to invite your neighbor to join Google Classroom, you could even do that. So please don't do that. But the link is just a link to access Google Classroom. You can share that with all of your teachers. You only need to submit one sample unit of work, not 10, not 20, not all school levels, just one example, because the department just wants to know you know how to create a unit of work, and they just expect you to do that across the school. So that's just important to remember. They expect you to do it across the school. They're only assessing one unit of work sample. Just seeing if there's anything else. So if you haven't noticed yet, unfortunately, really unfortunately, the meeting reached capacity on Zoom. That's never happened to me before. And unfortunately, there might be some colleagues who aren't able to join. So we'll be sharing the recording of the session with everyone afterwards. We will make it accessible. I'm sure Fari can put it onto the CLV website. We'll also share it on Google Classroom. I'll share another email around with just a reminder and with the link as well. So very sorry for the inconvenience, but we will share everything as well. I'm not sure exactly when the unit of work, the official deadline is, but Fari would be the person to talk to here. From what I've heard is that the department is still to give the firm dates, but from what I've heard, it's usually the end of June. Please, Eva, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be the usual deadline.
Yeah, it was often in July, but I haven't heard any deadline yet either. So I can't answer that question because nobody seems to know yet when the deadline will be. So as I said before, your starting point is always the curriculum. So in my case, it's the German curriculum. And the unit of work we want to do is for level 3. So the first thing we do is we go to the achievement standards. Okay, so the starting point is where the achievement standards are. So by the end of level 4, and
Anila, I can't unmute you now.
The first thing I do is I copy and paste all the achievement standards, and I'll show you in a second why I'm doing that. So at the end, as you remember, we had this lovely table where you put in the achievement standards. What I do is at the end, I put in all the, that was one time too much, all the achievement standards. Yeah. So by the end of level 4, students interact with teachers and peers in classroom routines, action-related talk, and play. That's my first achievement standard. So I cut all the achievement standards in little bite-sized bits. Yeah. Also they respond to instructions and use formulaic expressions to interact, ask questions, and so on and so forth. I'm looking for the full stop. And it's here. And I do that with all the achievement standards. Yeah, I will not do everything now because that would be absolutely boring for you. But just to give you an idea how we do that. Yeah, just one more example. And you do that with every single achievement standard. So you have them set out already in little bits and pieces. And we will need that later. Then you read through the achievement standards that you know what do you need to teach your students. Yeah, what is it you want to achieve? You start pretty much at the end of it. Yeah, so you look at what is the goal, and then you go back and build up your unit plan, your unit of work. So I go back up Our language is German. The year level is 3. We will do that in term 2. And the duration will be 8 weeks times 120 minutes. And the number of lessons will be 8. And with this term, for term 2, we have the topic history. So we want to look at history as a topic, and we choose life now and then. Yeah, so we look at life long time ago and how is life now. That's our topic we want to choose. And the questions we want to ask ourselves is, how was life a long time ago, and how is life now? And because we are dealing with grade 3 kids, you know, you need something that is interesting for them. So with which toys and games did children play in the past and today? We will look at toys. How was daily life in the past? How was school in the past? Yeah, I just had a discussion with my children yesterday. They couldn't imagine that their mom, me, grew up without a mobile phone. And I was nearly 30 when I got my first phone. So you can imagine how old I am in their eyes. Of course, I don't feel that old, but for them, it's unbelievable. Okay, now we have the unit overview. And remember, that is a draft. So I will go back later and adapt it or rewrite it if I think it's not right. So this unit of work will introduce students to regular and irregular verbs, past and present tense, through the topic of life now. Okay. When we go back to our achievement standards, we have here, for example, the use, just make it more visible, they use some forms of common regular verbs in the present tense, some irregular verb forms, and limited forms of modal verbs, simple past tense verbs, and the accusative case. Yeah, so that's what I'm aiming for. Regular verbs, irregular verbs, present tense, and simple past tense. So that's why I put it in my unit overview, because that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah. And we will do that through activities. For example, what will we do? In investigative writing activities. So for example, we could do a survey of different games and toys the parents and grandparents used when they were children. So we investigate with the students about the past. So they have to set out a survey, they have to write the survey, they have to record the answers and then make sense out of it. So there's a lot of thinking, discussing, and also writing involved. And they have to use regular and irregular verbs doing that, and they use past and present tense to do that. So with the unit goals, through this unit, students will be working towards being able to, and then I go back to my achievement standards here. And that's what they will be hopefully able to do. And I put it in here. Yeah. And of course, I will change it that it makes grammatically sense in English. Yeah. But that's how you work back and forth with your achievement standards in that way. Now we have the strands. So let's go to communicating first. So I go back to the curriculum and let's scroll up to the strands of communicating. Socializing. Share information with peers and teachers about aspects of their personal world, such as friends, home, favorite objects, and activities. Yes, we will definitely do that. Yeah, because we will talk about what they like to play with. So that's what I put in here. Yeah. So you see, I just copy and paste it, and then here's the hyperlink, and it should lead me to the right year level. Here we go. Yeah. And then I go back to the curriculum. Participate collaboratively in shared class experiences and transactions. Absolutely. They have to work together in teams to make the survey happen. So they will definitely do this one. And I put it in. I go back. So they participate in everyday classroom activities, responding, and so on. Yes, they will do that anyway, but I'm more interested in this one. Obtain and process information from peers and texts related to personal, social, and natural worlds. Present information in modeled, spoken, and written text relating to personal, social, and natural worlds. They will definitely do this too. So I take them, copy and paste, put them in here, and I take the other one because I think that's a really important one. Not to say they don't do any of the other things, but for our example here, that's what is important. Let's look at understanding. Is there something we can cover with understanding? So experiment with the pronunciation of vowel sounds, letter combinations, and intonations. That's not our focus. They will do that, but it's not our focus. But notice and apply elements of German grammar. They will definitely do that. As gender and singular, plural forms, adjectives, yes, they definitely will do this one. Because that's a focus in this unit of work that we look at different grammar aspects of German. Identify the purposes of familiar, personal, informative, and imaginative texts. Yes, they will definitely do that. So I stop here with putting in the strands because I think you get the idea what it is. There's a question, how does the essential question section mean here? Are the students expected to answer these questions in the end? If that is the case, is the session for learning outcomes? So the essential question is more or less, what is your inquiry with this topic? So life now and then, what do you want to know about it? What are you curious about? Yeah. So if you're a child, what would you be interested in? Life now and in the past. For example, the toys. were the different games, were the different technology? How was school like when my mom or my dad was in school? Yeah, these sorts of questions you put in here. That's the things you use later to engage the students and to make it interesting. And then key language. So what key language do we use? So we will have words for toys, for example. Yeah, and you can use your own language to put in what that could be. Yeah. I give just some examples in here. Ball, balls, board games, Brettspiele, and so on. You would do that in much more detail, of course, when you create your unit of work, just as an example. Okay, one question is, communicating and understanding strands are available for German language, but not for the language that I'm teaching. So what should I be using and from where? Okay, that's a really, really good question. And maybe you can, I hope I say your name right, Ashwini. Can you please let us know what language you have? Then I can show you where to find it. So I went back to the general Victorian Curriculum page. You go to languages. Okay, I haven't heard about this language before. So can you please tell us, is it a Roman script language or a non-Roman script language? Non-Roman. Awesome. And the language is from India. Thank you for telling me that. I learned something new today. So you can see here, hopefully, we are in the language curriculum and you can see non-Roman alphabet languages. And here you have the completely same structure. And you have your strands here, communicating and understanding. So you have the same strands. The difference is that, for example, when you click here, you have a very general description. If you do the same for German, you have German words in here, like Ja, Rot, Singen, Sport, Winter 2. You don't have that here in the general curriculum. Yeah, but you have, nonetheless, you have your strands communicating and so on for the different year levels. It's the same structure like with every other curriculum, with every other language. It's just that you look for the non-Roman alphabet languages and use the general curriculum. And what you can do then is when you build your unit of work, you put in, of course, it has to be in English, and then you put in your target language, your own language. Yeah. So if it's toys, for me, it's Ball, Brettspiele, so ball and board games. For you, it would be in your language. And then you go to the lesson, to unit outline. So in the first lesson, what are we going to learn? These are the learning intentions. So I want to teach them what verbs are and what regular and irregular verbs are. We are learning to recognize verbs, learning to conjugate regular verbs. Using present tense. Let's start simple with present tense. and not with past tense. And we do irregular verbs as well. Yeah, and then we start with our learning activities. I like to have a structure, so we have a morning circle activity, and that will be that we sit in a circle and we will talk about a past activity. So, for example, because it's the start of the term, we talk about my holidays. Yeah, so that's where they have to use past tense to speak about what they did during the holidays, and then the teacher models target language. Yeah, so myself as the teacher, I would say I would go first and model it, what I did during the holidays. And then we go to the next activity. And that could be, for example, introducing verbs. So we have a main activity where I model the language, and we would look at sentences on the board. We identify regular words, and I would show them how to do that, and I would how to conjugate the regular verbs. So using the right pronouns, and of course, because that's the first draft, it's not very precise, and I would put much more information in as I refine my activity. For example, what I would do first is I would ask, what is a verb? Because that gives me an idea what the students know already. Then we would play a game, and we have a really lovely word game where they have to conjugate standing in a circle and learn through the game how to conjugate regular verbs. Then I would go into the topic and show a poster and have a discussion what students can see on the poster, and the poster is about the past. And how that compares to today. And that's my second main activity for the day, because we want to start thinking about our activities we do for the topic. So they have to describe they see. So they use verbal language to describe what they see. The teacher obviously helps, and so on. And we maybe have a third main activity could be that we talk about the survey we want to do. So you can see we build up the the core of our lesson, so to speak. And then there could be a key assessment task, for example, could be that this is the first lesson, is the observation of student discussion and use of regular verbs and the conjugation. Then I would put in the key language we will be using. So that could be mein Urlaub war schön, which means my holiday was nice. Ich war in Tasmanien. I was in Tasmania, and so on. So I would fill in the key language I expect them to use and learn during that activity. So for example, for the regular verbs, we might use spielen. That means to play, because that's a very regular verb and we can use that for the conjugation. With the resources I put in, what we will need is the poster, and I would put in where I find the poster or a link to the poster, and then I will have a worksheet for them, and I would add the link for the worksheet as well. Just looking if there is another question. No, not yet.
I haven't recorded any.
Okay, wonderful. So then when I have everything and came to my, how many lessons do we have in here? Let's have a look. My 8 sessions, my 8 lessons. I go back down to the achievement standards and say, okay, this is an achievement standard I will have in here. So, for example, the answer questions related to the personal world, factual information, and so on. I put that in here because that's an achievement standard we will cover. And I put in what activity we do that in. We do that in the morning circle, example given, talking about their holiday, because that's factual information they give, and they have to sequence main events. And in this case, they are not producing short scaffolded summaries, but we cover that in a different activity later, when they have to summarize the survey results, how many, what toys or games their grandparents played when they were children. I put that in already, and then have a look what else we cover. They use some forms of regular verbs and so on. That's another thing we will cover. And we use, for example, the verb conjugation game for that. But we will have other activities in the later sessions where they can practice that, and I would put these activities in here as well. Okay, let's look in the chat if there are more.
No, I think I've answered a few just directly to people.
Okay.
Maybe just one that just came through by Sanya. So if you want to pick that one up, does the reflection task go into the main activity or assessment part rubric?
Yeah. So if it's a general reflection, I would put it in the learning activities, and then put in the key assessment. It can go into both. Yeah, it's more if it's, do you use it for assessment, that you do like a revision at the end of the session, then it would go, you have your feedback session, your revision, and you have your key assessment task that, for example, they present a poster with drawing a picture of an activity like playing or singing, and then they conjugate the verb. That would be the assessment task. Yeah, that you can assess if they understood what a verb is, and that they know how to conjugate a regular verb. That would be the assessment task then.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just one thing I think Eva's shown just with the example is really nice, is you do teach the language in itself, but indirectly through teaching something that's interesting to the student. So it doesn't mean you're not teaching numbers or the alphabet or tenses or the correct way of saying something. You do, but you weave it into a bigger topic that's interesting, and you vary the class so students don't lose interest, and they apply the knowledge rather than just being told. It's really hard for students to remember otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's just something I would want to highlight, because I think that your example just then showed it really nicely, how you do both. And that's part of the lesson plan.
And I give you a different example, but because I just witnessed it in our school last Saturday. So the year 2 students are learning the third person in German right now. So the he, she, it part of grammar. And to teach that, the teacher chose that they can think of a famous person they are interested in, and then they make a poster for this person. So they have to write a little paragraph to describe this person and why this person is famous. And because they're describing this person, they always have to use the third person. So, for example, one of the students draw a wonderful picture of Frida Kahlo, a famous South American artist. And she wrote a paragraph describing Frida Kahlo and always using the third person. Like if I would say it in English, this is Frida Kahlo. She is a famous artist. She painted a lot of pictures. She is famous for. So always using the third person in the paragraph while the student was writing it. So that's a way to teach them a structure or a grammatical concept through a topic they're interested in. Because if you just be in the classroom and you teach third person is he, she, it, and then you do like a revision sheet and you drill it, they lose interest and they can't remember. But now the students connected with a famous person, and without knowing, they learn how to use the third person in German. And that was such a lovely example, how you teach a concept in your language through a topic, through an activity. Okay, you are listening absolutely fabulously,
yeah,
amazingly.
I think people are unmuted. They can't unmute themselves at the moment. That's the setting.
Yeah, but still, I mean, we have still
great.
270 participants after 1.5 hours of a Zoom meeting. That's just amazing.
Yes.
So please, if you have questions, please put them into the chat box. Give feedback if that was helpful. Also, if it was helpful to have like a from the scratch unit to show you how to do it, because it was the first time we tried that. So we want to know as well if that's something that is helpful for you, or if it's a waste of all our time, then we can focus on something else. But please let us know. What about the next bit of the planner? It's not finished. No, if I would do the whole draft, we sit another 2 or 3 hours. I can't do a unit of work in 20 minutes to complete it. It's just a taster, how you can get started. But thank you for having the faith in me that I can do that in half an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, great job, Eva. Thank you for that. And also thank you so much all for attending. It's really appreciated. I'm very sorry about the technical complications. You would think past COVID, we are all a lot smarter, but I guess we don't have that much experience hosting an event for 500 people. So provided there's no further technical errors, we will be able to share this recording as well. Thank you for attending and so late in the day and for being so patient with us. And big thanks to Eva for doing such an amazing job with so much pressure as well, having 300 people watching. So thank you, and have a good night, everyone, and good luck with your accreditation as well.
Yeah, good night from my side as well. And please reach out. There's a lot of support and help available. And all the trainers are happy to support you and give you feedback. So please reach out to us, and we are happy to support you. It's hard work, and it's very difficult if you are not used to doing it. So please reach.